Being a variety of wolf, adapted to life in frozen mountain regions, with long white fur to protect it from the bitter cold and camouflage it against the snow. Their shining blue eyes can see even in the fiercest blizzard, useful in judging the position of others in the pack when coordinating attacks. Piranha Rift, comprising a great ravine running through the mountains of the Yagvermuda. This is a barren land covered in the hoarfrost and deep snows. The spent shells of airships hang in the frozen river, and here and there can be seen the ruins of great cities built during the years of the Galtean Alliance. Many other scholars who believe that the Piranha Rift was once a rich and verdant land, and that a climate change brought about by the mist made it into the cold, harsh Yagd we see today. Twintania, being a strain of plate worm residing in the dark reaches of the Piranha Rift, having evolved a feathered covering to protect against the harsh cold. Its smooth metallic carapace is coated in an oily secretion which prevents snow from adhering to its surface. According to legend, mages once used these creatures in the working of a great magic, powerful enough to destroy all of Ivalice, yet little is recorded about the magic itself. The Undying Phoenix is said to call back souls from the heavens, but to win the attention of such a fabled bird, you must give up a feather as an offering. The best are the downy feathers of the tail, hence the term phoenix down, see? Mark well that not just any feather will do. Depending on quality and size, the blessing received varies greatly. Displeased, you get what you pay for, says Cataract the Pugilist. Lizard, being a flesh-eating beast with 4 horns atop his head, sheathed in scales much like those of a dragon. Lives in humid grasslands where it digs tunnels with its powerful forelimbs. Its extendable tongue, situated toward the front of his mouth, is divided into 4 at the tip. The creature uses it as a whip to snare prey. Those captured, still wiggling meals are bound in viscous saliva and stored for later consumption. You heard of wind stones and ice stones, right? Well, my friend, there is a stone more powerful than either. Magicite. Oh, you knew that, did you? What's that? You say there's aught more powerful than even magicite? Crystals, they're called? Well, that's something I've not seen. Eh? And there's another stone more powerful still? Says Kenny the Time Mage. Emperor Ibis. Called Emperor for the intricate pattern upon its wings, much resembling exquisite embroideries such as one might find upon an emperor's robe. Living mainly in deep ravines and gulches and mountainous terrain, their eyesight has deteriorated in the dark so that now they hunt primarily by their other senses. They sense much through their distinctive horn, which serves withal as a vicious weapon for the impaling of foes. I don't remember it looking this intricate in the original. Worm breath. What could be more terrible than the breath of the mighty dragon? Not many know that this fearsome weapon is indeed a wholly natural emission generated in a large gland, rather prosaically named the breath sac. Thus, worm breath is a purely physical manifestation of searing flame, and one that has provided an impromptu pyre for many an overzealous adventurer. Garuda Edgy. Being the legendary foe of the worms, as told in the legend of the Dragoons. Living atop only the highest peaks, they feed primarily on serpents. Serpents? There's no serpents in Piranha Rift. Natural philosophers have confirmed the existence of 2 distinct kinds, the Garuda, whose glimmering gold wings distinguish it as original stock, and the Garuda Edgy, whose wings have lost their brilliant luster. Many are the creatures that regard these creatures as God. Many are the cultures that regard these creatures as gods for their auspicious appearance. Now, it is generally held that the sun has an affinity for fire. However, according to those natural philosophers who have studied white incense, the sun's allegiance lies not with flame but with holy power. This, of course, discredits the theory that the sun is but a large fiery sphere, and has led wiser men to suggest that the sun is indeed a holy object, to which flame has clung, a base light yearning for a higher power. Dark skeletons. being the black-boned demon skeleton of a man whose strength faltered and failed in a place rife with darkness. They are driven by the need to create more of their ilk, and so they exude dark energies, polluting all around them. The greater their number in a given area, the more likely it is that others will join in their eternal vigil. 'Tis a well-known fact that black mages head off into the wilderness several times a year, clutching a death's head from a dark skeleton tightly in their hands. But few know why they travel or where they go. Rumors speak of shady gatherings or pilgrimages to the underworld, where demons impart dark secrets to them in return for grisly sacrifice. But such explanations are little more than idle conjecture. Though nonetheless prized for their skills, this mysterious custom has earned black mages a rather unsavory reputation. What was that? The Jobber's Gazette? Slaven Wanderer. Warder. Being beasts once used to pull freight sledges filled with heavy materials over rough mountainous terrain. With innovations in transportation, they grew scarce, and now only a few remain, and these feral. Stores of fat under the thick hide of their backs provided sustenance when famine visited the cold, barren climes where they once worked. Observers have attested to the impressive efficacy of these deposits, individuals having reportedly survived for over a year without nourishment. The art of collecting. Those who are slaves to another, be they humanoid, hume, or beast, must wear a harness with the brand of their master proving ownership. Most such brands bear the mark of noble houses, and amongst them can occasionally be seen the crests of houses long since fallen. Scholars and collectors covet the harnesses of such forgotten dynasties, either for their historical value or merely for their rarity. Of these, the Slaven harness is the most prized. Skull Knight. Being an ancient knight whose elegant bearing betrays nothing of the weight of his thick steel armor. He wields a spear with the expert grace of elder times. In the distant past, in a war fought in a land of extreme cold, those that lost their lives became undead, being henceforth called the Brothers of Bone. Their numbers being equal to the losses on both sides, returning them all to the land's warm embrace would be an epic undertaking. Mount Barami-Sais. The sacred mountain of the Kiltia sect, located to the north of the Yag Bermuda. A temple was built here by the believers to mark the place where the founder of Light of Kiltia began to spread the teachings. There are accounts of the holy city here dating back to the writings from the age of the Galtane Alliance. In its long history, Mount Barami-Sais has never fallen under the control of any foreign power, on the understanding that Kiltia's followers would exempt themselves from political dealings in other lands. Kingdom and Empire both formed a pact to guarantee the holy city's independence, an agreement which stands to this day. It would not be an error to call Mount Barami-Sais itself a shrine to Kiltia. Apart from the temples, there are only a few residences, with roadside shops catering to the steady stream of pilgrims. In recent years, refugees from war-torn lands have gathered here, forming camps on part of the mountain. The priests of Kiltia give them aid that they might live here in peace. As Mount Barami-Sais is surrounded by Yag, the faithful must cross the Inner Sea by boat in their pilgrimage to the holy city. The Yeti. A thick coat of fur is the perfect protection against cold in the snow-covered mountain ranges where these creatures reside. In olden times, it was said that the mountain gods lived in the snowy crags, and villagers would offer them sacrifices for their good favor. Now it is widely believed that these gods were in fact Yeti, who had succeeded in cowing superstitious local residents. Now it is a well-known fact among researchers of Arctic monstrosities that the Yeti possesses lungs of a particular fascination, operating as they do at a temperature colder than ice, making them well suited to the breathing of frigid air. Unique structures within the Yeti's lungs cause atmospheric moisture to form icy tubes with openings on either side which permit the flow of air. Over time, these tubular structures grow ever more intricate, and when they are later forcibly removed from the Yeti's chest cavity, they become the curious objects known as Arctic winds and are highly collectible. Ice Elemental. Being an elemental of ice from the freezing blizzards of the north, the coming of such beings is perceived differently by the various peoples of Ivalice. To some it is a holy thing, blessed and ephemeral as the passing of the seasons. To others it is a harbinger of hard times. As a matter of fact, cold spells do visit the places where ice elementals gather, but research into the precise nature of their relationship with the weather is frozen, so to speak, no new discoveries having been made in years. Know you of the mage power, Shishak? 'Tis said it is a helm made to heighten the magical powers of knights, helpful when you spend long years training your body and few years training your mind. I've heard they use chimera heads to give it the magics it needs. Gives one cause to think that even the savage chimera is brighter than your average sword swinger. Flo, seer of the way. Wild onion. Thought to be a variant of Mandragora for the vines that reach up from its collar, covering its face like a mask. Notes the famed naturalist Merlos. It weareth its skin in layers, much like to the root of similar name, perhaps for the proffering of protection against the cold. Men say the great gaping orifice on its face was gouged by a shard of ice born of a midsummer blizzard, though its former mouth was passing small, befitting naught but low whimpering. Its prodigious new one screameth full loud and full much as the foul beast could want, thence earning its name. There is plenty of work in the world. I don't know what it is you want to become, but take my advice, look at the tricks of many trades and look well. If nothing else, the knowledge you gain will help you on your travels, and visit shops frequently. You'll find what you need sooner or later. Nakiro the Onion Knight. Lesach Entite. I guess it could be Leshak. Long ago the gods looked down upon the warring peoples of this land and were displeased. Wishing to contain their violence, the gods arrested time upon the battlefield, thinking to imprison those who fought there. But violence would not be so contained. It spread beyond its confines, contaminating other lands, and soon conflict was rampant once again. In their grief, the gods made a scourging blizzard to rage, and when the blizzard lifted, men looked to the skies and found they were alone. This fateful tumult is said to have given birth to the Lesach Entite. Madman, seal all you love in ice, yet know that in that ice you will see not your own reflection, but that of others. Jealousy, with raging thunderbolt held high, take the fickle ice captive. Only then will your heart be freed, and from within the ice the shining electrum be revealed. The still shrine of Merriam. One moment. Alright, Red Maw, being a variety of stealing whose body is covered in hard scales like to those of a dragon. It prefers to make its home in dry underground caverns. The name of Red Maw comes from the fact that the creature's mouth is ever painted crimson with the drinking of its victim's blood. The vampiric bite delivers a numbing venom sufficient to kill even the largest of fiends, should its fangs go deep enough. Sky Pirates, a name for the free folk who ply the open skies in airships. Though they are collectively called pirates, their actual occupations vary by individual. Some search for legendary treasures, some merely travel the world, while others are indeed ruthless villains who attack trade ships and plunder goods for profit. In recent years, the Arcadian Empire has stepped up patrols, bringing in the worst of the lot, all but consigning the more flamboyant feats of piracy to history. Of late, many are the pirates who have given up the thief's life for that of the headhunter, bringing their former comrades in arms to justice for a bounty. Those few who remain pirates have struggled hard to retain the title and are duly proud of it. The Zombie Warrior. Should they be cursed to live on in undeath, men who were soldiers in life become zombie warriors. In the cruel past, it was customary for those who fell in battle to be denied eternal rest by their masters and magicked to serve them after death as zombies, a tragic fate that has earned the zombie warrior more sympathy than others of its ilk. There were some spies come into the barracks the other day, but they got away before we could nab them. They was wearing black cowls just right so as not to be seen. Don't get me wrong, I ain't praising them, but if you'd seen some of them things they was wearing, made of fine woolen tyrant hide, you'd have been impressed too. Beryl, a soldier. Blood Gigas. Being a cruel, headless giant born from the spilled blood of a demon. It views the world through the eye enchained across its chest, the pupil of which is said to be a window onto the underworld. Some say that to stare into this eye is to show your soul to the darkness, and that those foolish enough to do so are instantly consumed by an unquenchable rage. Many such rumors endure to this day in the absence of a survivor to disprove them. There's this particular weapon and axe me and my boys are fond of, the Francesca. Or Francisca, she's called. Heard of her? Seems they make 'em up north, but only when pointed horns and Marlboro fruit are in healthy supply at market. That's why we've been out hunting for 'em every spare moment we get, Bimo. A berserker. Nightwalker. Thus are called those reapers, deities of death, that wander the darkness devouring the souls of men. Some are known for their strength of their blades, others for the strength of their magics. They are feared as demons for their cruelty, and indeed, the sight of them devouring a man's soul is said to be worse than a lifetime of torture. Yet, oddly, the expressions left upon the faces of those souls who have been devoured are not masks of pain, but of beatific calm. This has led some to speculate that it is not perhaps the inferno to which they bear their victims, but paradise. I've heard that means for making dark matter can be found in a grimoire carried by some evil folk. They say that the recipe's been divided into 2 books, so to prevent prying eyes from seeing it. And hearken to this, they say that if you were to stack them up on top of each other and wrap them up together in a severed bat wing, the whole lot would fly off, recipe and all. What I wonder is, how did someone come to find that out then, eh? Load of old codswallop, says Siamese the Witch. Dragon Ibis. Being a dragon that has lived in darkness for such a great span of time, its eyes have withered, yet its sense of touch has grown so acute that it may sense the slightest source of heat upon the air, thereby distinguishing obstacle from foe. Ibis summons to mind the word for demon's armor in an ancient tongue, and indeed, the worm's carapace is impenetrable as hard as steel. You know the diamond sword, right? Well, it's worth such a fortune that they have to wrap it in a bundle of feathers for sale so it don't scratch none. Of course, it's hard to imagine anything that would mar that blade. Why, if it did, Nick, I'd have to say it was fake. Serenute, a machinist. The Ghoul. Ancient teachings tell us that those attached to beauty are abandoned without succor after death, and fall back down to earth in execrable form as ghouls. Though the truth of this can never be known, they are indeed drawn to beauty, and it seems likely that they defile the living in a desperate effort to reclaim what they once had. Zertinan Caverns, a great cavern complex stretching along the length of the inland sea between Ordalia and Kerwan. Its passages twist and turn, winding their way from the Yagdyansa to Damaska and even Bankor. Labyrinthine and dark, the caverns provide an excellent place for criminals and bandits to hide from the authorities. The reaches near the Great Yensan Sand Sea are known for their frequent deadly subterranean sand drifts and the fierce worms that make their home there. Nearer to Bankor, the smell of brine grows stronger, and many of the cavern mouths open out onto cliffs overlooking the sea. Darkmare. Being a nightmare transformed by long years of living in lands saturated with mist, preferring to inhabit ruins and other places starved of light. Mist rises in clouds out of its body and pours incessantly from its mane and hooves. One of the more memorable looking enemies. You've heard of the, shall we call it, military-minded land in the south importing weapons of all kinds, right? Why, it sounds like they're after pointed horns and maggoty flesh to buy. I don't know what they could possibly want to use them for, but they say they've been trading them for their famed tridents, so they must really want them. Uyag the Illusionist. Facer. Statue made to defend the relics of the Dynast King that rest in the still shrine of Merriam. Within burns in everlasting flame the source of the power which fuels its ceaseless wandering through the still shrine's deserted corridors. Generally docile, but prone to charging in with teeth a-chatter and flames roaring when trespassers least expect it. The still shrine of Merriam, an ancient shrine deep within the Yagdramuda, Like Wraithwall's tomb, this too was constructed in the time of the Galtaean alliance, originally to honor the ancient god of swords and martial might. It is said that a Grand Kiltius of long ago selected the still shrine to house the relics of Dynast King Wraithwall, though why he would choose this site and not a temple of his own sect is unclear. Balloon. Being a fiend created by a Grand Kiltius of long ago to roam the still shrine, protecting the relics of the Dynast King that rest within. Its body exudes great magical power, fueling a pale, glowing flame that burns around it incessantly. Made to defend the relics of the Dynast King with their lives, or more precisely with their deaths. Centurio. An elite clan having its clan hall in the royal city of Rabanastre, formed by the young Mughal Mont Blanc. The relatively new Centurio is quickly making its mark among the clans is thanks in no small part to Mont Blanc's encouragement of cooperation between members, and all Centurio's dedication to getting the job done. Centurio is renowned for welcoming hunters of all races, its founding members including a Namu, McEnroe, and a Vieira. Merriam Guardian. A great statue made to protect the relics of the Dynast King that lies sleeping in this still shrine of Merriam. It is not known in what age or by whom it was made. According to those scholars who have investigated the shrine, the designs on the statue are similar to those in certain ruins around Ivalice, giving weight to the theory that they were created by the same unknown individual or collective. They say there is a point on the body which, struck just so, will stop a man cold in his tracks, unable to move. A skilled marksman could use a fine arrow, thin like a needle, to do this from a distance. That's where stone bolts come in handy. As I'm sure you know, they use bundles of needles to make them, so proper width and sharpness are guaranteed. Aim, of course, depends on your arm. Jimmick the Blue Mage. Oiling, being an amour found in the ruins of Arctic lands. The uncanny ichor of which it is composed is resistant to cold, yet the slightest lick of flame will set it ablaze. Some effort has been made in the past to utilize this substance as a weapon, but a viable method of collection has yet to be devised. Quite recently, a similar substance was found in the Yoguryensa Sansi, and research is underway to find a connection between the two. Oil is fuel for fires and explosions, right? Well, I've heard of a bomb called the oil bomb that puts two and two together. Dousing your target with oil and setting it aflame. They say the method of its construction came from the Book of Orgain. I guess sometimes fact really is stranger than fiction, says Githon the Dark Knight. Miriam Facer. Being the giant carven head of what must have been a truly gargantuan statue, stationed as an eternal guardian to protect the Dynast King's relics where they sleep in the still shrine of Merriam. It is not known by what power it propels itself through the corridors, but in that it represents the Colossus's only surviving locomotive part, it seems likely that the head retains the source of the original statue's animation. There's an odd bird among the swordsmiths, so there is. He claims the worth of his blades is not in their keenness, but in their sharpness, in the sharpness of the screams they call from their victims. Inhuman, eh? He's the one that forged the Ame no Murakumo. Word is, he spends his days pulling up scream root and listening to its cries. Told you he was odd, says Nars the Templar. Ghast. A sort of zombie, infamous far and wide for its ill-favored appearance and savage demeanor. It is rumored that this creature first appeared in a fairy tale and that the story somehow made its way into a grimoire, the very act of transcribing the words therein, thence giving life to the creature known as the Ghast. The truth behind this rumor and the power of words are currently topics of much study amongst scholars in the annals of our history. Lean closer and I'll tell you. Something you're not like to hear elsewhere. How to forge a Kaganui. First, you stick a giant feather what's been filled with dark magics through a chunk of festering flesh. Listen, give it a while, and the feather will turn black as dark as night. Then you sharpen the blade with the feather, and that's that. Of course, you may lack the skills and a properly fitted out workshop. In fact, you're probably best off seeing what trading on the bazaar will get you, says Mato, or Imato, the swordsmith. Crystal Bug, being a fiend that, unable to move and hunt for food on its own, mimics the form of a crystal, thereby tempting its prey to come to it. The deception is nearly perfect and thus almost impossible to detect. Should an ill-starred traveler make such a creature for a crystal and reach out his hand, he will be treated to a maelstrom of the strongest magics before having his life juices summarily drained. Only those few who can instill holy strength in many jewels may wield the holy mote in its powerful rays of light. So it is told, and so I had heard, but nobody took it seriously. No one believed such a thing could exist, including me. Yet it seems it was true after all, for I witnessed it with my own eyes, says Kakweza, a numerologist. Worgens. Yet another wolf. Being a variety of wolf with fur of eye-searing red, known to hunt in well-organized packs. Of them, the alpha worgen are the strongest and the pack leaders. The fur is doubtlessly for protection from the strong sunlight and harshly arid environs in which they dwell, the exception being the band of bright yellow stretching from their eyes to their ears, which, together with the red, serves as a clear warning to interlopers and potential predators. Just about anyone can see the value of a well-furred pelt. Still, there are some treasures you'd even give up a fine pelt to possess. One famous example, throat wolf blood. I won't go into the market price, but seeing adventurers lusting after furs with the mere spin of the blood splashed on them, well, I think you get the idea. Humbaba, being a fell creature, some calling it the Lord of the Beast for its vicious temperament and snarling lightning-fast manner of attack. The working of its heart and lungs is specially adapted to the mountainous regions in which it dwells, enabling long protracted combat without pause. The Humbaba is a social creature known to raise great howls in communication with others of its kind, thereby coordinating a pursuit or warning of danger. There's a legend, you see, which claims that if you were to crush the Beast Lord's horn and steep it in a brew, you would know the tongue of beast by the time you drunk a draught. Now, the legend doesn't say what exactly this Beast Lord may be, so to ascertain the truth of the matter, experiments were performed in antiquity using the powdered horns of many a creature. If reports are true, they learn what it is meant by the Beast Lord, yet none remain to tell the tale, for all those who participated were transformed into fell Humbabas and were never seen again. Python. Living in dry mountainous regions, the mouth of the python has developed its distinctive narrow shape to better probe the rocky cracks where its prey make their nests. From neck down to midriff, its body is split into two identical curves, and each containing an elongated stomach with powerful digestive capabilities. With these, can it process large quantities of food despite its slender form. Its bony scales are azure in hue and much resemble lusterless metal. Take the serpent in all her varieties. Surely her most salient feature is to be found in the curvature of her fangs. Lo, the great serpent's fang, as it is called, is as the most delicate carving of a great snake unto itself. The merest glance upon its form maketh one feel as though the serpent holds you in its eye, and you are lost. Perhaps this accounts for the popularity of the serpent motif among criminals and those of a violent disposition. The ashworm. Being a variety of fell worm feared since antiquity for its unsurpassed ferocity and strength. The restraining ring set about its body is ensorcelled with interwoven magics for enforcing servitude. But what being could have pressed such a creature into slavery, if not the gods themselves? Many are the alchemists and wizards who have spent sleepless nights struggling in vain to understand the mechanism by which these collars once functioned. Whence the sun rise where it doth set to rule over those it has created, that power, O control its warp and weft, taken, looks like sealed away. The moon ring hung from worm's neck is to see, for that purpose was made. The god, ere power is great, therefore made they powerless thin. But, yeah, and so it was. This is basically a description of the moon ring, but it's worn out, so you can't really know how moon rings actually work. Which is too bad, because you see them a lot in this game. Vulture. Being a variety of diver living primarily in arid mountainous regions, skilled at riding the updrafts high in the air whence it spots its prey, and plummeting downward for the kill. Having wingtips the shade of purple oft seen in highland flora, this being a clear indication of long years spent in adaptation with its environs. Its long beak, too, is evidence of this, the shape being perfectly suited for the fishing out of smaller creatures from between the rocky crags. The true hunter looks upon the vulture with envy and deepest respect. That the very word hunter comes from this diver's name is well known. Thus does the hunter strive to improve his eyesight above all else until the day his eyes surpass the eye of the hawk itself. Clay Golem. Being a magical construct of brick and mortar, the furnace in its chest which powers its locomotion is fed by its own clay, meaning that it must periodically restore itself in much the same way as we require sustenance to live. Though its inexpensive materials and ordinary workmanship make for an elegant weapon of war, its aptitude for repair makes it the ideal automaton for a range of other tasks, both in the laboratory and in the field. It is a sign of the low cost of fabrication that once the creation receives orders, they cannot be revoked, hence the sight of golems from a defeated and forgotten army roaming the land in search of an enemy long since dead and gone. Mossforin High Waste. It's a mighty mountain range standing between Dalmasca and Nabradia, well known for its odd rock formations, overhangs forming roofs over the mountain paths, and lone spires of rock jutting toward the sky. In a col between the peaks, it is a flat area where spring water bubbles from the ground, creating an ideal resting place for weary travelers. The shrines standing in the clearing were built during the Galtane Alliance, the names of the gods they enshrine long since lost to the ken of man. Slavin Wilder. Being a Slavin-born feral, hence called Wilder. Perhaps owing to its ancestors' history of industrial labor, it prefers to inhabit land rich in ore. There it feeds on small beasts and the roots of plants. Owing to their slow rate of maturation and a habit of sitting still among ore-rich rocks, it is common to see magnificent crystalline structures on the creature's backs, accumulated through contact with the rocks around them. Though it moves quite slowly, it is known for its fierce temper when aroused. The Alexander is a No. 1 heavy carrier class airship. Hold on. It's a heavy carrier class airship, being the flagship of the 12th Fleet of the Arcadian Imperial Army. The 12th Fleet, commanded by Judge Zargabath, operates under the Galtea Tactical Force of the Western Armada, led by Lord Bane. Fire Elemental. Being an elemental of flame, born in the midst of a blazing inferno, appearing most often in the mountainous regions where life abounds. The strength of flame gives power to much life, and can occasionally be a path to new knowledge. For this reason do the alchemists worship fire as a muse of creation. I've heard from a friend about how you make the weapon known as the ivory pole. Now, it's an expensive piece of kit, as I'm sure you know, but I bet you didn't know that blood-darkened bone is used to make it. Apparently you take a bone and polish it for a full fortnight with a demon feather. From the look of the finished product, you'd never know what it went into it, would you now? Says Maxim the Bandit. Word hair from Silica Wood. The Silica Wood is one of my favorite places. Being a creature with a body the color of a ripe red fruit and silken white hair as snow, though of a warm, personable nature, they are very wary of predators approaching from the rear and turn to attack at the merest hint of danger. Their feather-like ears are highly sensitive to the movements in the air, detecting the slightest stirrings caused by the approach of predators. Adored as a symbol of joy, it is popularly believed that those fortunate enough to glimpse the word hair are destined to enjoy happiness in life. Do you know why the word hair is considered a symbol of good fortune? Why, it is on account of the light that radiates from its body, much resembling the light of the stars used in fortune-telling and divination. The source of that brilliance is none other than the dust that stirs up around it as it scampers and whirls into the gloaming. The fine particles on its fur glitter like stars in the night, making it pleasing to the eye, and securing its position as a good luck charm withal. This dust in turn is called stardust and is highly valued. Pumpkinhead. Being a variety of mandragora, exceptional among its kind for a high degree of intelligence, the most often cited evidence of this being the clothes, gloves, and boots it is known to wear. It lives in the manner of men and exhibits a personality startlingly similar to ours. It is richly expressive and fond of making hideous faces, this same playfulness illustrated by the pumpkin mask it wears upon its head. The Celica Wood, forested region in central Nebradia. A path strung between the thick growing trees leads towards Arcadia. However, many of the tree bridges are covered with thick moss and in advanced stages of decay. As transport by airship gained prominence, the land roads were abandoned. Now more beasts walk the woods than travelers. The forest is the domain of the Kingdom of Nebradia, abandoned these 2 years since its fall. The number of fell beasts within its borders swells daily. Sprinter, being a variety of cockatrice living in the thickest of forests. They are feathered green overall, though here and there are feathers of the most peculiar coloration, providing camouflage against the brightly colored woodland flowers. Though their winged forelimbs are rather underdeveloped, using the float sacs beneath their skin in the rising forest vapors, they are able to hover about the canopy, making their nests, evade predators, and spot prey. Souls and entites, though vague and lacking in substance, are nonetheless possessed of great power. No great surprise, for are they not the source of life's energy? Were these two essences to become one, you can imagine the result, I am sure. It is said that the High Arcana is nothing less than the product of this union, and it is my belief that in these beings we may perceive the true form of the gods, says Viruna, a missionary. Marlborough King. Being the highest rank of Marlborough, and wearing a crown to prove it, it is still unknown how it came to wear its crown, or who indeed made it. There is such a rumor that claims that should a man slay it and put on its crown, he will be at once transformed into a Marlborough king. Should this be true, it could very well mean that the crown is cursed with the vilest of magics, and the beast that wears it was once a man. The tragedy of Nabudis. 2 years past, Nebradia, fearing the military might of the Arcadian Empire, made treaty with Rosaria to place troops from that land near her borders. Fearing an invasion of the Valendian continent by its sworn enemy Rosaria, Arcadia immediately exerted political pressure on the small kingdom. Yet Nebradia did not accede to their demands, and Emperor Gramis of Arcadia was compelled to use force. Several days after the Arcadian invasion, a terrible explosion reduced the once proud city of Nabudis to naught but rubble. Though the city fell in the space of a night, the mist that now swirls there where it once stood has for eternity. Even now, the cause of this cataclysm is not fully understood. Antares. Like the gun. Being a variety of mantis living primarily in large forests. Known for its insatiable appetite, this voracious beast can consume up to 5 times its own weight in the space of a single day. It dines primarily on creatures of middling size such as chocobos, known to hide among strands of white trees there to wait in ambush for its prey. You wouldn't think you'd spy people wearing clothes made of quality pelts and tan giant skin these days, would you? But hear this. Were you to use a fire crystal to treat those materials, you can make clothing of surpassing quality. Indeed, that's how power vests and chakra bands are made. I only found this out recently myself, by the way, so I'm hardly an expert on the subject. Katoso, a ninja. To the foreign coast. Yet another wolf. Being a variety of wolf with leading scales upon its back and the flats of its hands and feet withal. Having the curious habit of eating small rocks along with its prey to aid the digestion through a grinding in the stomach. It is thought that the lead and zinc from these stones pass into the beast's body, eventually leading to the formation of their unique scales. It is said that once, the son of a rich nobleman set out on a journey to provide his worth. His goal, to collect a piece of storm magicite, an insect husk, and a tanned giant skin. He thought it wise to deck himself with platinum gear, but its purchase cost him all his gil, and with no money left for traveling, his journey was cancelled. If it were me, I'd sell the gear and get me something of real value, says Gatal, a dragoon. Mandragora. Being a vegetative creature that grows in water of high salinity, the vines twisting up from its neck form a distinctive mask. As its screech is quite injurious to man, chemicals are often spread to prevent these creatures' growth, yet their vine masks prevent all but the most lethal of mixtures from actually killing them. Those natural philosophers who have studied their extraordinary powers of reproduction have pressed for an increase in the use of such chemicals. I was trying to make an herbal remedy, but I ended up making a bomb. Based on the ingredients I used, I'd say what I've got is something much like a poison bomb. What did I use? Why, bomb ashes in a fire crystal. Believe me, you don't want to know what my remedy was for, says Nightshade, an apothecary. Iguion, being a variety of toad, born of an egg, like to a giant jewel. It lives hidden between rocks, feeding with its long tongue any creature that approaches, large or small. The adhesive discs on its hands and feet allow it to suspend its body in all manner of precarious locations, enabling it to ambush prey from the most unexpected hiding places. As such, its victims often spend their dying moments in a state of acute bemusement rather than fear. The giant eggs of the Iguion are a prized rarity. Only the fanciest of the marketers of fancy foodstuffs carry this rare sort of frog spawn, and fewer still are those who know its true value. Why? Because this knowledge is so prized that if two who are in the know happen to meet, a fight to the death ensues, and the world is soon short one or sometimes two. Who knew? Archaeosaur. Being the most ancient of the tyrants known to exist today, its elongated skull and forward-set eyes are well developed for tracking the movements of swifter prey. When on the hunt, it charges with great strides, keeping balance with its long tail held out behind it. Perhaps due to its primordial nature, this tyrant is possessed of no great wit, preferring to simply attack all that moves, rather than waste time in idle pondering. They say the values of goods in lands to the far west are quite different from those here in Ivalice. Why, some things we consider rubbish are prized as treasures over there. Take frog spawn, for instance. Apparently it trades at the same value as an opal ring if you go far enough west. Hard to imagine what sort of country that is over there, eh? I'd like you to meet the lady who would wear frog spawn to a palace fete. Wait, on second thought, says Nera, seer of the sky. Pyrolisk. Due to its carnivorous nature, the beak of this avian has receded, being replaced by a mouth filled with sharp teeth. As it lives amongst the rocks near the sea, so have its wings changed coloration to match that of the sand and gravel. The pattern on its wings resembles that of an insect known as the Piloria, feared for their potent venom, which causes searing pain much like a burn, and is therefore an effective deterrent to predation. Every adventurer dreams of one day collecting the Giga series of equipment. Of course, these well-made items command an exorbitant price. That is why many seek to barter their way into ownership at the bazaar. That said, it's no easy task to collect the prime pelts and prime tan hides you need in trade. Make it or buy it, either way you've got your work cut out for you. Lonlo Green Mage. Piranha. Being an Ishtan favoring winds of high salinity, using its large fins to ply the air as if toward water. The sharply pointed bone on its head, like to a spear, is ideally suited for goring prey from the sky and fending off the attacks of the Pyrolisk. Its sharp wedge-like teeth are impelled by a muscular lower jaw so well developed that it dwarfs the upper, contributing to the creature's intimidating appearance. Fawn Coast is a coastal region lying along the Fawn Straits, which divide Arcadia from Nebradia. Praised for its beautiful beaches of white sand and lush greenery, a hunter's camp along the coast attracts adventurers and headhunters, forming a community where they might exchange information and rest between expeditions. The Bagali. In the age before airships filled the skies, the air above the battlefield belonged to the armored Bagali, or Bagoli. Yet tragically long, hard years of use in combat ruined its once proud wings, and now it is earthbound. As the airships rose, so did the Bagali fall to the ground, their place over the battlefield occupied by manufactured monsters of steel and skystone. So did the abandoned Bagali return to the wild. During their military training, one handler was assigned to each Bagali, the resulting pairs developing close bonds over the passing months. Thus did the Bagalis fondly recollect the staffs of their handlers, and thus did they acquire the habit of stealing and hoarding the staffs of the men they attack. Though it's difficult to predict how much a given bent staff will fetch at market, few merchants would pass up the chance to purchase one in the hope that it might be traded for another treasure at a later date. Air Elemental. Being an elemental of air in the pure breezes that blow through the world. The wind carries fragrance to seeds of flowers and trees, yet it can also spread fire and pestilence. For the wayfarer, the god of the journey, sets the wind to blow in a favorable direction, and for the merchant, the god of trade, fills the sails of trading vessels to carry goods to their destination. For this reason are air elementals revered beside the gods themselves in many ways, in many places. God of journey, god of trade. Everyone likes the man who gets his work done quick. That's why no one used to like me, I suppose. And the very reason why I'll never let go of my Hermes sandals. I hear it only takes some G-Saw greens to make them, but given their price, there's got to be more to them than just some tasty greens. Guile the Arcanist. The Sheeta Uplands. For such a big place, it has only 4 enemies. Or 4 new enemies. Coral. Being an odd creature with webbing, like that of an amphibian on its feet to aid swimming, a long, slender body, and even longer streaming whiskers, prefers to eat small animals and the like, but known to venture into the shallows to catch fish when food is scarce. This consumption of aquatic prey appears to be a taste acquired after the Age of Ice, when most land-based fauna was extinguished, and it was then that the coral developed its distinctive webbing. Sheeta Uplands is a hilly region reaching to the south of Arcadia. Before the widespread adoption of airships as the primary means of conveyance, this region was the highway to the Imperial City and filled with travelers. Ruins can be spotted here and there among the tall grasses, and researchers from Arcades often come here to delve into the mysteries left by whatever ancient civilization built them. Feral Croc. Fur the color of dead grass conceals a hard, scaly exoskeleton protecting this flesh eater with few known predators. Its head is concealed by a split upper and lower jaw, and it is from between these that it keeps careful watch on prey through well-protected sunken eye holes. It is aggressive yet wary, threatening potential aggressors with displays of its wide-open maw. Though the fur of the feral croc might seem at first to grow in a random fashion, the careful observer will note channels in the fur which permit air to pass and cool the beast. Typically, air flows freely over the creature's body before continuing on its way, yet on rare occasions it leaves the channels, swirling instead around the nooks and crannies of the croc's strange physiology. There, the wind takes on tangible form, and so is the substance known as the Antarctic wind formed. Serpent. Being a fiendish creature of terrible aspect, bearing 3 sets of venomous fangs with which it brings death to all unfortunate to be bitten. It is sheathed in hard, slick scales, allowing quick movement in even arid climes. Recent studies have revealed that the body of this creature has no less than 6 limb joints, suggesting perhaps that it was once winged. Among the followers of the light, it is believed that the Creator God sent 12 apostles to us upon the great working of the world, but I've heard there may have been a 13th, yes, another apostle. It's rumored that someone found an ancient tome, and that had record of an apostle who came among us in the form of a giant serpent. If this is true, and I see no reason to believe it isn't, then there should also be a gemstone, a great treasure bearing the mark of the snake, a gemstone named Serpentarius, Eldia the Summoner. Earth Elemental. Being an elemental of earth, the essence of any land supporting life. Certain sects worship these elementals as the sacred force that ties men to the land, and they give thanks to the elementals for rich soil and good harvest. Lands with parched soil, devoid of vegetation, are thought to be those where the earth elementals have been eradicated and no longer protect the soil from depletion. I heard people saying they'd revealed the method to making ether, but what good does a recipe like this do me? A mix of unpurified ether and caramel? Right. Now where am I supposed to get those? Patty the Geomancer. Sachin Cave Palace. The Abbas Steel. Being a variety of bat with wings of surpassing beauty, preferring to make their bodies, their abodes in magicite mines and underground chambers. Their wings are composed of a tough metallic substance, and by their patterns can males and females be distinguished. It is generally held that the patterning of the female is more beautiful, lending the wings much popularity as ornamentation on airships. The males, meanwhile, being considered ill-favored and shunned as a sign of bad luck. Few things bring to mind ill luck so readily as a vampire fang. Yet, the things are famous among apothecaries in their ilk as a vital ingredient in wards and charms against curses. And apparently not just any fang will do the trick. I'd have no idea how to tell a vampire fang from a regular pointy one if I had to look into such a mouth, and I do hope I never have the pleasure. If you want one, you'd best be ready to grope around in some pretty nasty places. Maybe you'll get your fang yet, maybe you'll lose a few fingers in the process. Either way, count me out. Imp. Being a creature known for its lusterless yellow body and full rounded wings, it is given to waving its long tail like a Rosarian dancer might wave her sixth veil, this to maintain balance as it flies. The name of the imp derives from an ancient word impet, meaning the child broken from the devil, and befitting their name, they delight in mischief and small acts of evil. Sachin Cave Palace is a giant underground complex in Arcadia, consisting of natural caverns and the abandoned ruins of an ancient palace. Many of its ways and passages remain uncharted on current maps. From the style of the carvings adorning some of the walls, it is thought that the complex was built at some point during the Galtane Alliance, though no records of its construction remain. A survey mission was initiated to chart the many corridors here, but a particularly nasty infestation of creatures has significantly hampered progress. The Striker. Being a condemned man, his blood turned by torture into pure venom, searing his veins, attacks without restraint or mercy, for only in the moment when he severs victim's head from torso does he know relief from agony. The necklace he bears, or wears, is shaped like the flower whose poison courses through his tortured soul, and is set with magics to prevent any serum from easing his suffering. Valendia. Content lying to the northeast of Ordalia, the climate is overall quite clement, and levels of mist are far more stable than on the other two large continents. Many towns and villages dot the hilly region stretching from the continent's interior to the shores of the Internaldoan Sea, most under the direct control of Arcadia. The kingdom of Nabradia, lying on the Fawn Straits in western Valendia, prospered here until its destruction in the Arcadian invasion of 2 years past, its capital of Nabudis becoming a deserted wasteland. The Pit Fiend, being a dull-hued creature with translucent wings resembling those of an insect. It does not fly by the beating of its wings, but rather by levitating, with magics it casts. Its wings are not without use, however, being essential to managing the wind in aiding balance, permitting uninterrupted flight even in the most adverse conditions. A myth counts this being as one of the warriors set to defend the Jade Passage to the Devil's Palace. Mudshot and Ice Cloud arrows, both fine projectiles to be sure, but both requiring crystals to make. This I can understand, but imagine what it would take to make even better ammunition. A scary thought, eh? Junro, says a poet. Wendigo. I wonder if this effect is intentional, because it looks pretty crappy. I think the original looked better. That whole ice effect on the head there. In ancient times, certain tribes would sever the head of the fallen and commit the body to a watery burial. By eating the heads of lost family, it was believed that one could bind their souls as protective spirits. Such practices have long been abandoned, but its legacy may be seen in the sodden corpses since risen to gouge the earth in search of buried kin. Arcady, the capital of the Arcadian Empire. Still small when it first formed as a city-state, it grew tremendously during the long peace fostered by the Galtane Alliance. When the empire was formed, the city center was relocated, forming the Arcadians we know today. Though poor in both natural resources and land, Arcades came to prominence as a city of innovation and learning. All information and technology gathers here, and the famed mages and artificers born within her walls are legion. Knowledge, then, is the true strength of the Arcadian Empire. The city of Arcades forms an octagon with the Imperial Palace at its center. Around the palace sit the Senate chambers and other administrative quarters, beyond which lies a booming mercantile district. The buildings in the city center are quite tall, with the lower floors being used mainly as residences. The difference in heights between the various buildings makes this a city of small airships, that being the most efficient means of accessing all the levels of the metropolis. More than half of the population of Arcades is human, and while at one time all lived near the ground, of late those of power and particular wealth have taken to living in the higher apartments and traveling exclusively by private airship. The Zombie Knight. Being knights of tragic bearing with oath magic scriven on their flesh, many are indeed deserters who receive the oaths as punishment and warning to others, robbing their bodies of freedom. These oath magic shall not be broken until the vessels of their souls are wholly decayed and worn away to nothing, and so they wander and kill and await that day. You've heard of the Halcyons, greatest among the Magicites, bearing the likeness of Entites. No, they must be powerful to be named after such beings as the Undin Entite or the Undin Entite. Of course, I have no idea how one would go about getting such a beauty, except stealing it straight from an Entite itself. Ha! Hermain the Appraiser. Gorgimera. Being a man who, consumed by magics, discarded the worn husk of his body and took refuge in the body of a cockatrice, thereby forming the fell creature known as the Gorgimera. Living in dim, dry underground caverns, corridors, and the like, their distinctive scaly visage is horrifying to look upon, and their wings, which spread to reveal mesmerizing eye patterns, draw others into the twisted world of their wholly corrupted minds. The Hunter Camp. Of the many hunters roaming Ivalice, the best of the best, seeking out the rarest of marks, are known to gather in a camp along Fawn Coast. Unlike clans, the hunters that collect here have no leader, and all information exchanges, activities to support the camp, and payments for such are handled on an individual basis. The Folklore. Being a fish, a flesh-eating Ishtan, easily identified by its brown striped hide. The fish fiend's jaws gape open like a crescent moon, revealing row upon row of razor-sharp teeth, razor-sharp wedge-shaped teeth. Its scales are made of metallic substance. It doesn't look metallic, and are extremely hard, known for its aggressive nature and sensitivity to the scent of blood. Hear ye, the Tasters Guild of legendary chefs known as the Iron Stomach have announced a change in pricing on a previously announced special ingredient, the dorsal fin. The repricing will finally bring this long-favored delicacy of the Iron Stomach within reach of the average household budget. The Feywood. Cerberus, originally watchdogs of hell, who came to our land to hunt down those who turned against the king of the underworld. They were charged with the duty of catching those disloyal to their king and branding them with their fiery horns as a mark of their betrayal. The brand carried magics of enforced servitude, and so those marked could never leave the underworld again. Though they no longer serve their ancient master, having long since been set adrift in our world, they continue to give chase and attack with fiery horns. There is a flame fueled by vengeance and hatred, and never shall it flicker or fade. Perhaps it is the Hellgate's flame burning on the horn of the Cerberus that has earned it the title Watchdog of Hell. Yet these flames touch none but the wicked, and singe the good not in the least, hence the custom of searing the sinful with flame to adjudge the weight of their sins. Deadly Nightshade. Being a mandragora with a head like a red tomato, hailing from the eastern highlands, changing climates brought them down to the lowlands. Many are the treatises written by natural philosophers attempting to trace the roots of the strange black and white markings covering their bodies, reminiscent of the clothes worn by prisoners. Dracula Laboratory. Weapons Research Laboratory located a short distance from the administrative district in the northeast of Arkady, sponsored by the Arcadian Imperial Army, with Dr. Sidolphus Damon Bonanza as its head researcher and maker of policy. Research is divided among airship design projects, sundry weapon projects, and magical endeavors. In recent years, particular attention has been paid to magicite research, with great strides being made in the manufacturing of magicite and improved methods for drawing energy from the stones. A strict security system is in place to ensure that none of the knowledge of the Dracula Laboratory leaves its doors without authorization. The Moo. The curious moo makes its home in the ancient trees of the Feywood. Their nests are made by boring holes in the tree trunks, whence they peer out to watch for danger. Spending all of their waking lives beneath the shade of the trees, their bodies are pale and colorless. So close is their affinity for the trees that some communities consider them to be tree spirits. According to the chronologists, the creatures known as the Mu come from emissaries from the moon and were once revered as sacred beings. Thus is the dust they guard with their lives thought to come from the moon itself. Indeed, this moon dust is markedly different in nature and composition from most similar sands found here in Ivalice. Mandragora Prince. Being the mutated form of a mandragora grown near a killing block or some other such place where blood is spilled in large quantities, having eyes the color of blood, writes the naturalist Merlot in her vivid account of an encounter with one such beast. Gazed I then into the crimson pupils, and witnessed I there its abiding madness. If the blood spilled on the ground where it grew was pure, then it is said it will become a mandragora prince, with a fell appearance but hopeful heart. Only those with luck in spades might hope to find a lucky four-leaf clover. So goes the tale, and with its telling, this humble leaf grew into something sacred and mystical, a bringer of good luck. Yet few are they who know that the four-leaf clover is host to a deadly poison, strong enough to kill the largest of giants. And no wonder so few know. After all, if you happen to be fortunate enough to find something so rare, you'd be unlikely to want to eat it. Basilisk. Being a variety of serpent able to maintain its body temperature regardless of its environs, preferring to live in colder regions, it has two distinctive scale patterns on its breast, which are said to be the result of interbreeding between the two strains of serpent. As its body is covered with scales of surpassing smoothness, it is able to move quickly through areas of deep snow. A single piercing gaze from that eye turneth the hale body to stone, or so it is said. The serpent eye men calleth it, and with fear. It is thought this belief derives from the similarity observed between common serpents and certain Ophidian creatures of malevolent nature, who hold it the power to turn others to stone, the inner fold of their eyelid being stone as a matter of course. Those who found these creatures newly slain witnessed the power of the serpent eye. The All-Ruin King. Being a mutated form of All-Ruin, its horns having acquired strength akin to that of metal, through ceaselessly struggling for dominance within the pack. The combat awakened those who survived, and as one they departed. In a secret place they now foregather, locked in combat through day and night to determine the strongest All-Ruin in the world. The sharp and deadly weapon of the All-Ruin King is indeed but a coiled-up vine. They may whirl it around at will, skewering anything which strays too close. The report of one such vine-penetrating worm skill is no idle rumor. Indeed, the gyrating power of the gimbal stalk is greatly to be feared, and if its strength could be applied to weapons of war, oh, the victories one might claim. Behemoth. Being a giant lord of darkness fashioned by the gods during the creation of heaven and earth, its muscles are hard as steel and its bones made of bronze, originally appearing as a great ox. The souls of the many warriors it killed in battle have altered its form forever. This diet of death has added to its skill in combat withal, as it draws strength and knowledge from the warrior souls imprisoned within its veins. We're getting into the more interesting enemies. If you've confidence in your abilities as an adventurer, it's said the behemoth is the perfect test of one's mettle. Should you defeat one, your confidence will grow still further, and the vitality you gain by consuming a behemoth steak will help you to yet greater feats. In this world where the strong eat of the weak, there can be no mistaking that this is the true path of those who would succeed. Onion Queen. Every season a fresh and beautiful female wild onion is selected by her peers to lead the patch. The chosen one, filled with confidence in her own beauty, becomes elegant, noble, and queen-like in every respect. There are some who theorize that to preserve her beauty, the Onion Queen becomes wary, fearing injury. However, judging by their undiminished propensity for violent behavior, the wise observer might question the veracity of this theory. Why is it that we use the name of a certain vegetable to refer to both those who excel and also those who also those without experience in the ways of the world. It is a well-known fact that all heroes in all tales disliked vegetables as children. Their legend begins with their overcoming of this weakness and then continues with a journey filled with hardships. The noble vegetable, the onion, lives on as a symbol of hardships overcome and as the mark of a true hero. Praying Mantis. Being a strain of killer mantis bearing 4 pairs of large wings upon its back, though the wings have atrophied, a flight membrane spanning the legs suggests that these creatures were once able to fly, which would be very creepy. They are carnivorous in nature and very aggressive, attacking with their blood-red sickles held high. Many villagers call them demons, hungry for blood, and tell tales of them to scare children at night. One popular theory goes that the wind carries within its gossamer folds invisible sickles apt to swirl and cut men's flesh. When these sickles are bared, the sound of slicing wind is heard in the air and the body is suddenly ripped and torn. As no blood comes from these cuts and there is no pain, many are they who have died without knowing aught was wrong. People call these unseen threats the sickle blades. Pumpkin Star. Being named for its prominence in the upper echelons of Pumpkinhead society, these creatures know of learning and are all dedicated to the pursuit of some form of knowledge. For those who show the most success, there is a reward, a star-shaped lantern. In recent years, their intellect has advanced by leaps and bounds, causing some natural philosophers to fear a coming clash with our civilization in the days to come. There once lived a young boy who was wont to study even as the sun fell and the moon rose. In time, people came to call him a sage. Born to a farm, he took a pumpkin grown from his own patch and made of it a lantern, thereby reading it at night when all of his daily duties were discharged. So did the boy grow in knowledge until he was wise. Therefore do we say that the light of the pumpkin is a symbol of great learning, and so has the jack-o'-lantern become a favored affectation of scholars. Golem. Being a great soulless vegetative creature that supports its mass and moves about by means of extraordinarily long arms. Said to be the manifestation of tree spirits from trees burned down on battlefields. Golems are peaceful by nature, though they suffer no intrusion upon their territory. They are as strong as their life trees were old, so old that some are already in advanced stages of petrification even as they stand. Those vines and other parasitic plants that attach themselves upon the golem draw from them their hatred and thus grow, eventually becoming mistletoe, a word meaning stricken by catastrophe. In the language of the woodland peoples, it is widely believed that without the proper purifications, mistletoe causes misfortune upon its bearer, and has the power to kill with magics. So do those who approach golems unwarily and carry home what they find, condemn themselves to a grisly and sorceful death, bewailing their fate with their final breaths. Top Stalk. Being a leader of sorts among the sharp-toothed deadly nightshades, they live upon the flesh of other animals and various fantastical creatures, the latter part of their diet causing them to become hardier than others of their ilk. Their vicious fangs have the property of amplifying the noise of their screams, making them all the more clamorous and inspiring of fear. Upon consuming this vegetable, one loses interest in all, the will to act quite gone. Recognized as a highly effective reagent for inducing languidness, the manner of its use is up to you. It is the lowly tomato stalk, and by all rights it should be thrown away. Mirror Knight. Being a high rank of Bagali, the armored flying weapons of war, so effective in combat against enemy soldiers it was honored with knighthood. However, with the advent of airships, the need for its presence on the battlefield decreased and the old flights were disbanded. Though not disposed of in light of their past contributions, these once proud warriors of the sky were exiled into the wilds. Having lost reason to fly, they soon lost the ability, and now they crawl along the ground hunting for prey as any common beast. There's good reason why smiths favor scales polished to a mirror finish when making armor. Those who see their own reflection and the rage burning in their eyes in mirror scale armor are stricken, unable to move until the enemy frees them eternally from shame. It is as though they were slain by their own image. Holy Elemental. Being the holy essence found in that which is sacred and pure, occurring only in places where the mist runs deep, a fact which has led some natural philosophers to speculate on a deep-lying connection between the aspect of holiness and the mist. Of all the elementals, the holy elemental is truly a boon, ridding the accursed of evil spirits, lending strength to the righteous, and passing judgment on the wicked. The Garland is a #1 heavy carrier-class airship, being the flagship of the anti-imperial coalition forces led by Marquis Undor. Built in secret by the Marquis to prepare for a war against the Arcadian Empire, believed to have much the same capabilities of the imperial heavy carrier Alexander. And Tartarus, being a beast with fur of deep green with a white geometrical pattern of great beauty thereupon. Originally living in the depths of the underworld, they evolved to look like the virulently poisonous Tartar fronds of hell, thereby to avoid predation. The Tartarus are as evil and violent as that upon which they feed, souls condemned to hell's bottom. The Feywood is an ancient wood deep in the jungles of Galmor. The combination of dense mist and regular snow, the latter a product of the region's elevation, is enough to keep away even the Viera. Many of the trees have stood for several thousand years, and some have begun to petrify. Numerous plants once thought extinct grow here, and many rare birds and animals can be seen in their primitive forms, unchanged for millennia. Now we're in the ancient city of Giruvegan. Oath. Being a strain of coral easily identified by its black stripes and on ashen fur and splendid crest. The patterning on its head grows more complex with age, with the coral possessing the most whorls designated as pack leader, and those beneath it fixed in a rigid hierarchy based on their patterns. This social structure makes the Oaths a dangerous pack hunter. Ah, the famous coral. While one may scoff at its high-priced pelt, few are those who would pass up the chance to claim one of those distinctive whiskers. More than any monetary value, it is the sheer difficulty of obtaining this rare prize that compels the true adventurer to dust off his sword arm and take up the challenge. And what a choice! Claim the fine expensive fur, or risk bloodying it for the chance to claim that elusive coral whisker. It seems like the perfect conundrum. If this seems like the perfect conundrum to you, then you're a true adventurer. The Shadowneer. Pretty cool looking enemy. Being a warhorse, the oldest breed known in Ivalice, once belonging to the great cavalry of an ancient state known for its love of warfare. These majestic and terrifying creatures determined victory in battle in an age when cannon and like armaments were unknown, and they were truly loved by their handlers and people of the land they served. Further apart, they harbor an undying loyalty to their homeland, though it be not more now than dust and echoes. They serve and protect its memory to this very day, though their bodies have faded, and they are something near to spirits. Clans of Ivalice. Clans exist throughout Ivalice, the majority of them being quite small. Still, of those clans operating in the largest cities, many have earned a name for themselves through their accomplishments. Clan Diatroma of Bujerba and Clan Buckaboo of Balfonheim Port are some of the more famous regional clans. Of late, a young clan of Dalmasca by the name of Clan Centurial has become a household name. Along the Fawn Coast, bands of hunters fulfill the role of clans, hunting local monsters and keeping the peace. Giruveganus, being a tyrant worm driven to madness by mist, now a violent, capricious creature. The naturalist Merlot writes in one of her most harrowing accounts, that hideous mist which spilleth forth from its dark core raiseth a mirage before the eyes, and I am blind with fear and apprehension, for its nebulous form is madness incarnate. I pray that my skill with the blade faileth me not in this most dire circumstance. Its eyes shine with a curious luminescence, allowing it to see quite well in dark underground corridors. 'Tis the height of folly to brandish arms against a tyrant that has no more form than a mirage. The broken great axes left by those who've tried and failed should be proof enough of that. In order to truly defeat a foe, one must know more than the foe's character and physiology. One must listen to what the dead have to say on the subject. No one wants to be next in line to have their great axe broken. Skullworm. Being a dragon bound by magic so powerful it has forgotten to die. Its life continues though the flesh fall from its bones, and so will it continue until its bones too are nothing but dust. Only then may it rest. With the passing of eons, its intellect has faded to something primal and violent, and its dim awareness of its own decay makes it all the more unpredictably vicious. A worm bone brought to the bazaar has reportedly begun attacking merchants. We have received numerous other reports and are currently investigating possible connections. Findings to date suggest the involvement of a reanimator cult, but they have so far proven elusive and have yet to be brought to justice. The investigation continues. It's kind of messed up that the old world magics relied so much on keeping creatures alive beyond their natural death. Zombies and dragons is messed up. It's good that they stopped doing that. Vivian, being the primordial Marlborough, born in antiquity of an elder witch. All Marlborough alive today are said to descend from the Vivian. Upon its head rests a crown signifying its status as a queen among its kind. Over the course of its long life, its body's youthful hue has faded, now being entirely devoid of color. There are some chroniclers who hold that the witch mother of the Marlboroughs was indeed named Vivian, and was no witch at all, but a plant creature herself. Gyruvagan is an ancient city to lie deep within the Yogg-Difor. A dense mist conceals its actual location. There are some who claim that it holds the secrets of a legendary civilization that flourished before men knew the workings of the world, but none remain who know the truth. Many are the expeditions sent to find this place and record its knowledge, but most have disappeared in the Feywood, or despaired while attempting to understand what artifacts have been found. To this day, we are no closer to discovering Gyruvagan or illuminating its mysteries. Forbidden. Those who are born with undying souls, filled with the purest hatred and jealousy, are wryly called the Forbidden, for what sane creator could truly allow such monstrosities to exist? Being zombified as a result of the gradual decay of the flesh around the eternal soul, yet these cursed beings have ever been the subject of much study by those obsessed with the ideal of eternal life. Perhaps this is why they despise men with such venom. Have ye heard? Take a broken spear and some mistletoe and wrap them in a kilu board. Right? You ken what happens? They burst into flame. Hard to believe, eh? But it's true. Why, that's the very method for making one of them Gungnir spears, so it is. Of course, you cannot just burn the wee thingies. You have to wait till she flares up on her own. That's all important, that is. One look at the fruits of your labors and you'll agree 'twas well worth the bother, says Farron, a warrior. Gargoyle Baron. Being a creature with giant white gossamer wings, its head is rather small and it has a habit of wearing a small crown set with magicite. Wing-like ears are set back far on its head to pick up sounds from all around, and perhaps also to sense for shifts in the mist. Its body is covered in ashen hide, as devoid of color as its character is of warmth, its bearing being cold and merciless. One truth known is the key to 100 magics, and the end to 1,000 lives. If you think you understand this ancient maxim, by all means look deeper. Perhaps then you will gain the wisdom, if not the strength, required to wield the destructive power of the magical shard known as the Scathe Mote. But I doubt it. Elias the Sage. Reaper. Great Reapers, takers of life, goes kin in name, but gods of death and truth. Being originally sent from on high to work upon mortals, texts in all religions mention these beings with fear and awe. While each account differs, all agree on one thing, that the Reapers exist only to free the soul of its earthly bonds and bear it back to the heavens. They appear before us to foretell our deaths, appearing again only when the time for severing worldly ties has come. The Arcadian Empire, the mightiest sovereign state in Valendia, originally a republic governed by an active senate. The rise of the military brought about the shift to an imperial system 200 years ago. With the change in governance, Arcadia began invading its neighboring lands, quickly becoming the largest realm in Ivalice. While in the past the emperor was traditionally of military extraction, a purge of key figures in the military by the politically powerful House Salador led to the installation of a line of Salador emperors, which continues to this day. Mom bombs. Being a magical construct, much like a simple explosive created by lords of the ancient city to prevent intruders reaching its heart. Its body is formed of a strong metal of surpassing quality, beneath which seethe magics in mist under tremendous pressure. Though they are individuals as a side effect of their simultaneous creation, they are as facets of a single consciousness and have been known to coordinate their attacks on intruders to deadly effect. The Rosarian Empire. an empire located in the west of Ordalia, possessing an army rumored to be equal of the Arcadian imperial forces. Though an emperor rules, Rosaria is a military state, and the armed forces carry much political power. In recent years, the Margrace imperial family has sought to limit the military's power, embarking on a series of reforms and to restrict the scope of their authority. Arcadia's unprovoked invasion of Dalmasca sent shockwaves through the Rosarian establishment, and many are those who see a war between the empires looming on the horizon. It's a shame you never get to see Rosaria. Mithril Golem. Being a magical construct fashioned of pure mithril. Though mithril's strength in proportion to its weight surpasses any other metal, many layers of such were used in the construction of this golem, sacrificing lightness for sheer durability. Machines of war, the destructive power of these golems is greatly feared on the battlefield. In the deepest reaches of the past, an underground kingdom there was, and here did they make the metal known as mithril. A metal so strong that even magma cannot mar it. The flame gigas saw this and were displeased, and so did they launch a grand assault on the kingdom under the earth. At the end of a long, brutal war, the Gigas was defeated, yet the kingdom too fell into ruin, sinking deeper still beneath the surface, away from the light, and into obscurity until it and its prize mithril were discovered by adventurers centuries later. Necrophobe. Being a particularly accursed variety of ghost that, fearing death so greatly, wanders in denial of his own demise. So rational is his fear, he is certain that all who cross his path mean him mortal harm, and so strikes first. It is recorded in the annals that once, when a score of these cruelly afflicted beings appeared in a village, they were halted by magical panels facing each of the cardinal directions, this device barring all misfortune from entering the homes of the people who lived there. Safe though they were, the villagers were nonetheless besieged. Fearing starvation as much as the violence of their enemy, many contemplated suicide, but as the sun set on the third day, they peered through their windows to find that the ghost had vanished, never to be seen again. This is a very strange story. The Athenaeum, one of the few respectable institutes of research into Ivalice's past, has released notes on the effects of the rare substance known as ambrosia. Though liquid, the ambrosia collected from the creature known as the necrophobe is so light as to almost be vapor. All ancient records agree on its fantastic efficacy in the healing of wounds and the prevention of aging. According to a new report, however, it is the powerful hallucinatory effects of this substance that create these perceived benefits. Unddying Entite. In ages past, the gods took to the air and from here shone with a brilliant light, so that man might not walk forever in shadow. The light drove out cold, then fear's grim pall, and purified that which was corrupt and evil. Yet man was not pleased. He grasped for the light, seeking to make it his own. He wanted to be a god. So the gods quit their heavenly seat and created the Unddying Entites, whereby to judge man with a fierce and holy righteousness. Thus did man seize light, and in so doing lose the favor of the gods. The power of holiness is salvation. The power of holiness is its faith. Worship it, and it will be an absolute. Worship it, and it will know no doubt. Yet strike it down with the power of darkness, and its eyes will open, and it shall know fear. Holiness, fearful, shall surely offer the shining electrum to you. Ritter Cataract. Deathclaw. Being a variety of mantis having a brown shell-like husk, the anterior wings are vestigial, having lost most of their flight membranes. The stripes on its mantle increase in number at a rate of 1 per year, while its sickle forelimbs grow harder with age, eventually becoming desiccated and stone-like. The Ritter Cataract is a strange opening in the sea floor that has created an endless whirlpool, drawing the surrounding sea ever downwards. An island is situated at the cataract's edge, on which stands the great Pharos, surrounded by an ancient ruins. Its size suggests that once a great city flourished here, but of its rise and fall nothing is known. The area surrounding this island is yogged, preventing an approach by airship, while the proximity of the cataract and its tidal pull make it impossible to reach the island by sea. Cassie, being a violent strain of Marlborough created in experimentation by the natural philosopher Catherine Asua. an expert of great renown, specializing in the physiology of plants. The wild cassie, as her creation became known, spread on account of a researcher who carried seeds out of her laboratory. The cassie is easily identifiable by its ruddy brown coloration and curious patch of gold fur. Its creator shall never know respite from guilt until the day when the last cassie is thrown onto the mulch pile. There is a charm, the working of which requires that one draw 9 stars upon a prayer board in the blood of a cassie. Depending upon the configuration of the stars, the board may be used for the warding of evil, the fulfillment of pure wishes, or other such noble cause. This Ketu board is popular amongst market goers, being one of the most widely available charms today. The Pharaohs. Abaddon. Being beasts born from the bones of an ancient creature that has long lain dead within the Pharaohs. Of these, the most violent are called bulls, and greatly feared by even their own kin. Thick purple veins stripe its body, constantly oozing a viscous fluid by which action impurities are removed from the creature's blood. The foul discharge serves as also a slippery second skin, deflecting the blades and claws of those who would do it harm. The port at Balfonheim is a prosperous port on the Naldoan Sea, renowned for its rich fishing grounds. In addition to fishing, the port is known for its shipwrights and their numerous contributions to the advancement of seacraft. Though demand has dropped with the spread of airships, the wrights are still able to turn a profit on their craft. The power in Balfonheim rests with the sea captains and pirates of wealth. Though belonging in name to the Arcadian Empire, well-placed regular bribes have ensured the city autonomous governance. The city itself is small, being a classic port town with many stone-cobbled alleyways winding between buildings which hug the curve of the hills. Fresh seafood can be found in the market stalls daily, along with many other items brought by traders and pirates. Several waterways run through the city, some carrying drinking water, others used as canals for the transport of goods. The manse of Pirate King Redis stands in the western quarter of Balfonheim. Chimera Brain. Sorcerers twisted into fell beings by the spiteful magics of rivals. Though full half of their wit be dissipated by ensorcelment, they still possess great magical power. Perhaps because of their history, they fear mages greatly and travel in packs for strength. This is a report. Eat the head of the wise, in his wisdom you shall gain, like eating food whence to gain nourishment. To determine the truth of this, I have just now eaten a whole chimera head. No effect as of yet. On the morrow we shall see. No further entries. Poacher no longer at large. Investigation closed by imperial decree. Sergeant Zerse of the 8th. So something bad must have happened to this person. Boon. Being the avatar of a demon, summoned by ritual. Unlike other demons, to protect its bounden duty, but that which it protects need not be a person or place. Some are set to protect the calm of a town or the peace in the city. Scops sing of these curious creatures as the gentle hand of evil. Engrave naked steel with this special pattern. Work magics into the steel over several days and it will transform into the never-rusting alloy known as Damascus steel. This tempering process works only with steel and is utterly ineffectual when applied to other metals. This is due to the presence of the power of earth within steel being neither too abundant nor too sparse, and accounts for the recent rise in the metal's price. Magic pot. Not a single report of this curious and rare fiend's capture or slaying has ever been circulated. In the past, these creatures were demons of legendary might, foes unto the gods themselves. The gods feared them and their power, and so changed their form to that of a harmless pot. Though their strength be stolen and their temperament cooled by transformation, they still possess terrible magic powers. Anyone seeking to best one of these beings is advised to approach with caution and perhaps a show of goodwill too, lest they suspect and strike the first blow, for it might well be the last. The Light of Kiltia is a religion begun by the prophet Kiltia over 2 millennia ago. The religion of the Ordalian peoples is a dualist system, a polytheistic pantheon with the god of light, Faram, the Father, at its head. After embarking on a pilgrimage to proselytize and deliver the word of the vision he had seen to the people, Kiltia came to Mount Barami-Sais, and from there his teachings spread. The light of Kiltia, as his teachings were called, were continued even after his death until they covered all Ivalice. Though the followers and churches of Kiltia are spread far and wide, they do not interfere in affairs of state or governance. Though at one point the church held considerable influence, they willingly discarded that power, fearing oppression. Ever since, church officials with the rank of celebrant or higher have been forbidden from participating in statecraft. In addition, Mount Barami-Sais maintains a mutual non-incursion policy with the surrounding territories. Several years after Kiltia's founding, Saint Ajura began a new teaching, claiming that Faram alone was the one true god, the popularity of this new sect further lessening the power of the light. Reaver. Being a giant entity with the power to cross the divide between this world and the spirit world, its body is highly muscled, requiring massive amounts of energy to sustain movement, as the Reaver's voracious appetite for the flesh of other creatures well attests. The horns atop his head are of incredible hardness, able to notch even adamantite. On rare occasions, a Reaver of exceptional strength is born, this being a high Reaver, and even more to be feared than the more common variety. The Pharos at Ridorana is a giant tower standing on an island near the Ridorana Cataract. Though not actually a lighthouse, a curious light emits from its upper reaches, piercing the darkest night, so earning it the name of the Pharos. Similarities can be seen between the architectural style of the tower and that of the ruins about it, but there are none who know the details of its creation. Crusader. Its being an undead warrior of some form of renown, wearing armor of polished mithril. In life, these fell soldiers belonged to an invading army that massacred many people. It was the hatred of the slain that cursed the warriors, condemning them to an eternal unlife of aimless wandering. Scourged with remorse for their crimes and hatred for those who led the invasion, they ceaselessly roam the world, hoping one day to claim revenge. There is a rare metal called gem steel, found only in the hidden enclaves of warriors. The manner of its making is shrouded in mystery, but the finished product is traded commonly enough. Why, I should think that gem steel would show up in the bazaar stalls sooner or later, if enough raw materials found their way to the market. I'm sure that one of them would turn out to be the secret ingredient, says Bardock the Thaumaturgist. Arianite, being a creature of extreme rarity, its body lighter than air itself, vents upon its back belch heat and steam upward, keeping the creature from floating too high. Should these vents be damaged, it would rise up and be carried away on the winds. Arianites are revered among many cultures as a symbol of holiness, appearing as a motif in sculpture and murals. The airship armadas of one far-off land display a blood-red wyvern ring as the heraldic crest. In this land, colors are used to distinguish class, with red being the most auspicious and thus highest in rank, used both for the royal family and, it being a military state, for their elite fleet. This red-wing armada is said to be the strongest in the world and serves as an excellent deterrent to invasion. The Dragon Leash. When it so happens that a dragon lives long enough to forget its own mortality, it becomes a dragon leash. Once zombified, it will never know true death. Unless it is somehow reminded, the creature is doomed to wander for eternity. This phenomenon is believed to be a product of the dragon's iron will, in combination with its startling vitality. Interestingly, there are recorded cases of dragons being freed from zombification. Whether this be achieved by some secret means or by fatal force, the result is, of course, the same. Is an empty vessel not waste to be freely discarded? And if it is, then is a body bereft of the soul not the same? No matter how dear the friend, should they perish and their soul move on, what's left behind is not but a shell. But then why am I so vexed? If this body is truly waste, then why do I despise the corpse flies that gather about it so? Cataract Ibis. Being a dragon with a carapace of deep sea blue found living in the Pharos, these creatures spend their infant stage in the great cataract surrounding the island upon which the Pharos was built. Their aquatic origin is discernible in the water grooves cut into their scales, in the smooth slipperiness of their hides. Though they possess eyes, they cannot see well in the gloom of the Pharos, and rely primarily on their acute hearing to detect prey and predator alike. Old Arcades, district on the outskirts of Arcades. With the transfer of governance to the imperial system, a new city was created, the existing city blocks now belonging to the old quarter. At the time, the underprivileged lived here, along with nobles who had lost power with the rise of the empire, while those with power lived in the new city. Now, several centuries later, little has changed. The residents of the old quarter are largely itinerants, and those others outside the protection of imperial law. Unlike the new city where buildings tower towards the sky, the old city remains brick and stone. Everything feels neglected, abandoned to a fate of slow decay. With officials less than inclined to worry about the old quarter's governance, little or no effort has ever been made to revitalize the area. Brain Pan. Being statues of ill-favored aspects set inside the great Pharos, it is said they were created in antiquity to protect the magicite that lies sleeping at the very top of the tower. Yet the magical power of the stone they were set to guard corrupted them, and they became twisted and evil, attacking all without pause or purpose. Strong magics seethe within these statues, gradually building up before erupting from their mouths in rays of brilliant light. The Age of the Gods. Many thousand years ago, all-powerful beings looked down upon the land, and their rule was absolute. They commanded all things on the earth. All was done according to their will. Then one day they withdrew behind the walls of a great city of their own making, disappearing from history's stage. In the vacuum left behind, Ivalice fell into chaos, until the march towards a new age finally began. Purobolos, being a bomb-shaped fiend dwelling within the Pharos. The bones of ancient monstrosities were used in its creation, trapping within it a fearsome volume of magics and mist. Its goal is first and last the defense of the magicite sleeping at the very top of the Pharos. To this end, will it give its life, going out with something of a bang if necessary. Until quite recently, the mallet was a tool used exclusively to bring the deeply distressed to their senses. However, the violent appearance of the tool has lessened its popularity of late, and mallet makers everywhere are feeling the strain of a downturn in demand. But now a savior has emerged from a most likely direction. The famed Memico the Pug and several other mummers have begun using mallets in their work on the stage. Nothing is more crowd-pleasing than braining a fool with a mallet, it seems. The Daedar, being a statue of stone set to protect the holy magicite that lies sleeping within the Pharos. Its surface is caked with the dried blood and gore of countless creatures who have died trying to claim the stone for themselves. The statue has been worked with numerous mechanisms for stopping intruders to the Pharos, though such subtleties have long since been lost to a mist-induced madness that now possesses this construct. A certain kind of metal is always used when making statues of protection. This orichalcum is a curious metal indeed, ever burning with a cold flame. That it appears as a flame, in fact, has led to the belief that orichalcum is no true substance, but combine an incandescent flame with the cool burning flame of this metal, and the energy given off as a result will be quite real enough to convince even the stubbornest skeptic. This is the power that moves the statues. Mistmare, being a variety of malachite whose plant-like covering has withered and turned a dull blue. One moment. Turned a dull blue. It thrives on mist itself, even absorbing hostile magics on occasion, hence requiring no food or other material sustenance. Its dependence on mist and the fearful reports of black mages who saw their finest magics consumed earned its name. Man, monster, all heed the sway of the stars. All lives are guided by 12 stars, and the star to which you belong determines your fate. When the fire of life dies, sometimes rarely, it leaves behind a gemstone of great beauty. When the wheels of fate stop and the soul leaves its starry home, then does it become a jewel. The Undin Entite. The gods gave water to man to purify and cleanse pollution, and they made the rains fall to purify and cleanse the land. The clean land gave rise to flowers and plants nurturing man. Yet man continued to pollute himself in his land, trusting ever in the gods to cleanse what damage he wrought. So the gods sent down a deluge until land was sunk in deep waters. It is said this deluge gave rise to the Undin Entite. The power of water is the power of benediction. Blessings to all it gives, yet it covers all. Jealousy wanting for itself. Wield the roaring flame, wither the water's lust until its desire is parched and dry. The water once withered will be reborn as tears, and when these tears flow thence, will you find the shining electrum. Alright, from this point, it's bonus. The bonus areas of the game. Pretty much. I think now's a good time to take a break. Another 2 hours. I'll continue from Zertinan Caverns. It'll definitely speed up around here. The bios get much shorter. Yeah, there's not too much left. Alright, from Zertinan onwards.